switch on the roll, or you guys check what we have 240?
Very jealous of
'Cause I didn't see the power of the presentation, so you have a pretty color. Here. Sit next to me. Your dreams come true.
Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 7:03. Welcome to everybody visiting. I'd like to invite you to rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first off this evening, I'd like a motion to amend the agenda to move the spotlight on teaching and learning the technology showcase after student comments.
Motion to move the spotlight on technology and learning after student comments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's see, can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Can I have a motion for approval of the open session minutes of April 6th, 2015?
Make a motion to approve the open session minutes of April 6, 2015.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Are there any community comments? Any members of the community wish to speak at this point? Seeing no such person, we will then move on to...
Two things going on. On Friday, April 10th, Nibok sent two students, junior Carly Thibodeau and sophomore Sean Keller, to the Massachusetts State House for the annual Student Government Day. Students had the chance to collaborate with local legislators and other high school students who share an interest in government and political science. This annual event not only introduces students to everyday responsibilities of our local leaders, but also gives them the chance to see our lawmakers in action. Second piece, on April 16th, Nibok held its fourth one-act play competition. This annual event highlights the talents, actors, and crew members of Nibok drama. They did an awesome job. Students performed a series of one-act plays that are produced and directed by their peers. 18 Nipmuc students qualified for and traveled to Orlando, Florida, which couldn't be a national conference. The students will return to school on April 30th. The last piece is during April vacation, a group of 11 students who study French and Spanish participated in an amazing travel experience. Accompanied by Mrs. Reardon and Mrs. Fowler, the group started their trip in Paris, where they learned about the history of the kings and saw their summer houses in Versailles. The students were able to climb the Eiffel Tower, visit Notre Dame, and shop along the Champs-Élysées, then traveled to the Côte d'Azur and visited the independent city-state of Monaco and the coastal town of Nice. While traveling to Barcelona, students were able to see evidence of the ancient Romans in the town of Nimes, where there is an amphitheater at the Barcelona, switching to the Spanish language and lifestyle. We admired the artwork of the Gaudi throughout the town and saw the site of the 1992 Olympics. It was a great trip for all. That's the Nipmuc News. Thanks, guys.
Parlez-vous français, Chris? C'est bon.
I can read that one nice and slow.
All right, so next we'll move to the spotlight on teaching and learning, the technology showcase.
Thank you very much. As you can see, we have a great crew here this evening. We've got a lot of our students, which I'm delighted to see, our teachers, our administrative teams from both MISCO and Nipmuc. And we're here tonight to really scan at the high school with regard to technology. I really want to drive home the point that technology is only a tool. It's a means, it's not an end. But it's an incredible means to help us get to the outcomes that we want for our kids. Things like greater communication, greater creativity, and greater collaboration. So I think you're going to see a few vignettes here this evening about how it's really making a substantial difference in improving teaching and learning within our district. So I'm going to turn things over to you, Dale Casal. I'm sure you've seen her before. She is our technology integrator and kind of point out some different applications and how technology is truly being a game changer.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a little bit of a surprise, but a good one. We have a lot of great things to show you, and I want to just introduce sort of the kinds of things that you're going to see. We've had a really great year this year. There's been a lot of things that happened. When I started making the list, I sort of surprised myself. We've had things happening in the schools, things happening in the community, things happening with parents, things happening among and between students. We had our first annual Hopefully High Fair. The annual part is the hopefully part. And if you attended that, you got to see the stars of the show as they will be tonight. We started having monthly or bi-monthly community tech gathering evenings. So had groups of parents coming in twice a month to learn along with the kids and with me. We have a brand new one-to-one learning site. We have a technology blog that's out there with all kinds of how-tos, parent tips. We have a fantastic new PD website. There's a lot of stuff's happening along with amazing and fabulous teacher websites. So if you get a chance to take a look at your teachers' websites, they are phenomenal. And there's more every day, and they're growing with all kinds of interesting things that are happening in the classroom, some of which you'll see tonight. This year that I think have really been game changers are the use of all the Google suite of tools that we use. We use Google Docs, spreadsheets, slide presentations, and most of all Google Drive. So the students are really beginning to learn how to manage their digital lives. And there's a lot of little things that have made tremendous differences, and this is one of the things. Students are just becoming masters of organizing themselves, figuring out how to create a workflow that really works. And that's one of the biggest challenges with using iPads. And our students have risen to the challenge along with the teachers that are just doing it. We are using both Edmodo and Google Classroom for communication, different kinds of communication. We have communication between teachers and students, and I think most importantly, communication between the students themselves. And you'll hear how the students are collaborating, communicating, and taking responsibility for themselves and for each other using these tools. So those are the small things that are making huge differences. Students are finding authentic audiences and voices through these tools, and you'll see some examples of that. Students are problem solving and taking responsibility for their own learning as well as the learning of their peers. It's also a tremendous way to build community. So parents are part of this community as well as the community of the classroom and the school. You're going to see some innovative uses of technology tonight from collaborative book build. Students are publishing books, they're scripting and producing their own videos. There's just an endless stream of things that are going on in the classrooms, and I urge any of you who haven't had a chance to come into the classrooms to come and visit. We also have both schools, we have a new student tech force, so we have the iBraves. I dragged Deb up here to give me moral support. He used to be one of the iBraves at Misco Hill, our student tech force at Misco Hill, and we have the Midland SAT team helping out with supporting technology in the classrooms, out of the classrooms for teachers and students throughout the day. So it's a tremendous help. These students co-teach with me. They proudly publish their creations and their support for each other and the school community. So we're very excited and proud of that. It's also a way for them to learn the real world skills of taking responsibility, getting a chance to be true leaders in every sense of the word. So we're very excited about that. And I guess that's it. We have had a lot of PD this year that has been tremendously successful, and we've had teacher presenters, outside presenters, and most of all, teachers are sharing with each other. I get more PD sitting here at lunch every time that I'm at Lisbon than you can possibly imagine. I mean, just if you could be a fly on the wall and hear the excited things that teachers are sharing with each other during lunch. That said, I think it's time to hear from the students. So do you guys have a plan of action? Go now.
Well, actually, Taylor.
You want to start this? Okay, so Mr. Clark and the students are going to share their presentations with you.
Do you want to do the presentation, or do you want them to talk about the
Well, that's
presentation?
completely up to you. I think you should describe what the project was, and then maybe show a couple samples.
Yeah, I can show some.
And if you need some help.
What you need, so
So go over to the bottom, and you see.
over here to my left there.
I had it on video.
Is it? Here. I don't know if it was HDMI 1 or 2, and now we know. It's HDMI 2.
All right. One example of a project that kids were involved with is one early in the year on Latin America called Rainforest Mythbusters. And Taylor and Paxton, Calvin, and Megan O'Donovan did a project on polar bears. And I can just briefly show you an example of this. What they had to do is they had to examine a lot of information regarding a statement that I came up with regarding the rainforest. Yours was full of yours, right? What that they had to sort through, and what kinds of evidence was involved. What did I include in that?
Well, we had to see if the pollers and if they needed, well, deforestation affected pollers and macaws in the rainforest.
And was it easy to sort through all? And where did you find the information? Where was the information posted to you?
There's a website called Moodle, and it's for all of the blocks and all of the classes, and there's each a topic, and under each topic there's different links that you had, so you can click on the links.
This is the current topic, but it's for a research project like this, I post, for example, this is one that's coming up, a lot of video clips, articles that they have to look through, audio stories that they have to look through as well. Rainforest project was like this as well. They had to examine a lot of information and come up and reach a conclusion on their own. And then they had to make a movie explaining this, do a news report, investigative journalism. And this is what Taylor and Paxton and Calvin and Megan came up with.
Hello, my name is Kevon Lopez, reporting live from BTC News. Today, rainforest survive. The answer to that is yes. I'm going to send it down to Taylor Johnson, reporting live from the Amazon rainforest.
Yes, Megan Hemmings reporting live from the Amazon rainforest. Megan is going to be talking about us about the effects of global warming and deforestation in the rainforest and causing the rainforest to survive.
Yo soy Megan Hemmings, una científica.
I am Megan Hemmings, a Colombian scientist studying the effects of deforestation in the Amazon Brazil. Here in the Amazon, close to 2,000 species of trees are dying because of the effects of deforestation. The macaws depend on the trees to live because they use them for their habitats. If we continue with deforestation, we might see the extinction of macaws. This graph shows the different deforestation levels in different Amazon. These animals are considered endangered due to the effects of global warming and deforestation in the rainforest.
So they had to come up with the information, they had to come up with the script, and they had to shoot it and edit it as well, but and most importantly, develop it, they had to reach a conclusion regarding that statement. And Dev and his group used a green screen. You want to talk about that, Dev?
Well, we use an app called TouchCast, and what it is we take a green screen behind and it transforms it into any video or picture you want in the background. So you see in the video we actually used the rainforest. We got away on safari, found a picture of a rainforest. We were standing in the rainforest, but we were actually just sitting on the tiles. We were just standing on the tile.
Hello, I'm Deb from the DAN News, bringing you Mythbusters. The rainforest trees cause the rainfall. Fact or myth? Find out now with the DAN Mythbusters News. As you can see here, the rainforest consumes the water from the ground. Then the trees release water because do not have enough time to move, and it rains in the same region. Through that process, the rainforest causes rainfall all the time. The process in the rainforest happens so much, so fast, because of the tropical climate.
So you can see the process, and you can see Dev at his news desk when he was actually sitting at the desk in the back of the room with the green screen behind him. So, just one question I have for you guys is how did using the iPad, using the apps that you used, how was that different than doing a poster or something like
Well, I feel it kind of just makes it easier because you have everything right there. You can carry it with you every day you go home, and every day you come back to school. Before it fills, you have to make sure it doesn't get bent or doesn't get wet. But in an iPad, you can have the case and everything and make sure that you have everything safe and secure, and you can keep on saving as much as you want to make sure you don't lose anything.
that? So what about the C's there? The C's, Tim? Do you remember any of this? You want to talk about it? With using the iPad, using the doing the video project. What did you have to do with your four group members?
Well, we have to be able to share with them and they collaborate with them.
One other project, thanks guys. One other project that we did was on environmental problems in the former Soviet Union, and hold up here, guys. Okay. This one right here, what did you guys use to create this? It was a similar design in that they had to examine evidence and they had to do research to come up with some conclusions and incorporate math and science into it as well. So, what did you guys use to develop your presentation?
We used Prezi, which is basically a slideshow thing, kind of like Microsoft PowerPoint, but not Microsoft PowerPoint. If that makes any sense.
How did, when you guys presented, you presented a lot of facts, but you also presented, when you presented using the animations of President. I don't know why mine's not working, but my copy of it's not working. But you presented your voice and presented to the class at the same time that you were showing certain images. And you guys had written your script to do that. So how did writing your script and using the Prezi make it more impactful than just presenting in front of class just off of cards?
Well, first of all, you can have a diagram of what you're presenting, like on the screen. If you have cards, you're just presenting, like the audience doesn't get a feel for what you're presenting. They just hearing words and not digest it. It makes it animated. Just makes it like a real presentation, not something that will bore everyone. Or
Unless you're using my iPad. And when they presented, they were able to, and Paige, do you have it on yours? Okay, you do. Let's see if we can get yours too. But we won't actually report this stuff. Because, again, for some reason on mine it's not running. Paige has it on hers, but we'll see if we can get it to her. But they presented, when they were talking about certain statistics, they had that statistic on the screen and they had an image to go along with it, along with an animation. And the students in the classroom, and by their voice that went along with it and how they presented. And it was a very effective presentation.
So we are going to have another group come up that's going to talk to you about, I can't type and talk at the same time. This is a group of teachers who have been using Edmodo, one of the tools that I was talking to you before about. They are going to talk about different case scenarios that they have going on in their class. I had used the green screen in one of these very classrooms. And they're going to be using the green screen to create digital books. The thing about this, I pulled this quote up earlier today, because I've been talking to these teachers about the small things that they're doing that are making such a big impact. And I think that you'll see that each of these teachers are doing amazing things with these students using this tool, and these are fifth grade classes. So just keep that in mind and get a load of this. That's what I'm just, okay.
So, hello, I am a fifth grade teacher at MISCO, Lauren LaJoy, and the fifth graders. It's a little more teacher-driven, but I've been really surprised by even my fifth graders at how independent they've become with this tool. It has many, many capabilities, and it's more of a tool or a platform for students to get assignments or resources. They can actually get a PDF document that they can now alter on their iPads, and they don't have to keep their folders and papers on hand all the time. It can all be within, and kind of like an extra copy or a backup within their iPad. So I'm not mirroring here. So I'm just going to go over in general, and I'd rather speak more to what we've done with it. Rita and Megan are using it in different manners, since we all kind of teach a different academic area. I, this year, am teaching math and science, so I have a different spin than an ELA or social studies teacher. So overall, it's changed. Edmodo has changed my classroom in many manners, in that I can quickly do a formative assessment. When we started with the iPads, we really learned a whole bunch of apps in all these different places, and I think it became very overwhelming to me as a teacher and the student, who's a fifth grader in particular. They're going here, there, and everywhere, and I feel like Edmodo is just this big tool that came along, and I said, oh my gosh, it has it all. Perfect, I'm going to use it. One of the tools that it has, it directly aligns with the Common Core. So I can pick one standard and get a baseline for my students. I can, at the end of teaching that standard, I can get exactly where all the students are at. Are they ready to move on? And I can also create groups very quickly on the spot. It's a 4-question assessment, so it's very quick and easy. I can put out assignments. I can do quick polls with the students, which they love doing. I even do a very easy poll, which is always anonymous. How are you feeling about this topic? Great, let's move on. Not so well. And stop, I have no clue what you're talking about. And they're more honest when I post up the poll. You can give a quiz. I have folders that I give to them as reference and resources when they do research projects. I can give them a website and a hyperlink to it, so they don't have to worry about making sure they have all the letters correctly. They just go into Edmodo. I have the PDF attachment of the directions, along with all the resources that they'll need to complete the assignment. It's all in one spot. And a teacher has a library and folders, just like any computer that you have folders that you can create, whereas the student has a backpack. So they can take anything that I give them, and they can push it over to their backpack so they have access to it. Family involvement, so it's not as though I have to send a separate email. The parents have been very accepting of it. It's a locked, safe, private area. It's not public. You can open it and close it at any time. Something I actually introduced at open house night. Students, even my fifth graders have become so much more independent about their learning. If they're absent from class, you'll see a post. I was out today, who knows the IXL, or who has a copy, who can send me a copy of the math homework. Sydney's one of my students, so she can attribute to the things that I'm saying tonight. But I have been so impressed with my fifth, really problem solving before an assignment's due. So the student network is excellent, and even just as a teacher, we can join and collaborate with other teachers across the world. So you can learn how are they using Edmodo. You can connect with other math and science teachers, and they can give you, I just found this new website, and start using it with your kids or checking it out, where they're not always taking all the time or not having enough time to find all the great resources out there because they're forever changing. But that's kind of Edmodo in a nutshell. I know Rena's going to get into more of what you do with ELA.
Okay. So I'm Rena Muenzer, and I teach 6th grade ELA at NISCO. And we are using Edmodo by and large because of an in-house professional who showed us how functional it was, how easy it was to use. So we decided as a 6th grade team that we would start using it. And what we found is that it pretty much does everything that we needed to do. Sometimes we have to kind of be a little creative with how we use it, which is one of the things I'm going to show you tonight. Middle schoolers know that middle schoolers are very social. They like to communicate, they like to share their thoughts and ideas, and Edmodo allows them to do that in a very safe environment. One of the things that I use it for is I have an account that's set up for assignments, so I can push out, as Lauren was saying, all of the information regarding assignments, due dates, reminders, anything that goes along with an assignment. Sometimes we grow very organically on the whiteboard. We'll create an organizer, we'll create some notes, they'll create some things on the whiteboard that I'll want them to have. So it's very easy to snap a picture and embed that into the Edmodo for them to look at it when they're actually using it, when they're going out ahead to do their writing or do an assignment. One of the things that Edmodo allows them to do is talk to each other. And so I was looking for a way that they could do this sort of without so one of the things that we did, this is real life with the iPad. Yes. Okay. Okay, everybody cross your fingers. All right, so what I did was I set up using a feature in Edmodo that's called small groups. And it allows you to set up as many small groups for whatever purposes that you would like to have. So one of the small groups that I set up, or one of the separate accounts that I set up, was called the Online Community. And this was a way for the kids to sort of learn how to do online discourse, a way for them to be able to understand what's appropriate to post, what might be a positive thing to post, how to keep it respectful, how to have a conversation online, which is something that at this age and going forward, they're very much going to work with them. So the All Yours community is basically theirs. They drive the content with that. They go in and they will post things like over vacation, what are you doing, what kinds of things did you do. They'll post in polls, they post in the kinds of things that they're interested in. We have a lot of positive posts that go in saying, I'm putting a post in and everybody who comes after should post something positive about the person before them. They will post in sometimes their thoughts if things are concerning to them. I've had people post in ideas and thoughts about maybe pets that aren't doing so well and they want to get a little bit of a boost from someone else. One of my students on the marathon anniversary posted in quite a lengthy post about the marathon bombing and his feelings and just recognizing the people who had passed away on that day. things like, we did 10 random facts about me, and they come up with it, but it's all fully moderated. They know that I'm seeing it before it goes out there, and I've actually had to do very little moderation in the sense of censoring anything or saying, well, that's not quite going to fit, because they've taken it on and done so well with it. The other small group we have is called Book Buzz. And I actually have 2 students who are going to come and show you this a little bit more closely. But in Book Buzz, the difference between this and some things that are done is that this is not an assignment. They are sharing their thoughts and ideas about reading, and they're doing that on a voluntary basis. So if they read something that excites them, they put it out there. If they're looking for something that excites them, they put it out there. People are borrowing books from each other. I'm creating an extremely long, and what it's doing is it's helping kids see themselves as readers. It's helping them to see that other people read and are interested in reading. And so it's generating the buzz that I was hoping it was going to generate. One other thing with the All Yours group is it's really kind of neat to see the level of engagement sometimes. When we did the iFair, I posted something out on All Yours, and I said, well, who's interested in coming? And out of 82 kids, I had about 25 kids who said, you know what, I'll do it. But, of course, when we weeded out sports and transportation issues, we still had 11 kids show up, which was quite a few kids. And some of them were a little bit nervous being at the iFair, but, you know, they came to me and they said, I'm a little nervous. I said, well, you know what, I am too, but we'll get through. But then by the end of the iFair, you want to see my Edmodo account? And it was actually very cool to see that. Okay, so we have Book Buzz. Then we're using a group that I had set up called In the News, and this is actually kind of cool. What we've done is, Dale has been phenomenal about sending emails, ideas, thoughts, websites, lots of free stuff. And on one particular day, her email converged with a snow day, a cup of coffee, and the computer. So I actually went in and started to play around with it. And there is this free site out there. And for those of you who might be listening who are teachers, it is updated daily. Thousands of current event articles. This one, you can see how timely it is. They are written at a variety of reading levels. So everybody reads about the same thing, but they can choose to read it at their own reading level. And it's very private. They just go in and they touch and they adjust the reading level. And they can actually, what I will tell them to do sometimes if it's a topic they're not familiar with, to start it at a lower reading level, to get your sense of it, and then you can go back in and kind of play it up a little bit and see, watch how the vocabulary changes, watch how the titles might change. So they're doing that craft and structure sort of work, where they're looking at how things are put together as well as what the content is. So I embed this into that In the News pretty frequently, where they will read and then they will respond. And they will go in and respond seeing everybody else's responses. Look at somebody else's and make it exactly the same. Well, we talk about that. So you're not going to make it exactly the same, but you're going to model it. So I do see growth in, when we first started doing this to more currently, that they're looking at other people's. And sometimes we sit and just scroll through and say, well, whose do we want to look at that we think is particularly strong? And they do like to do that as well. So, you know, they're just very open. It's funny because they're so much more open to communicating via the tool and then talking about it than they sometimes are when you're just calling on them and saying, okay, well, who has something to share? The idea of, I think, typing it in lends it to a little bit more, it doesn't feel as risky sometimes, I think, for them. Okay, so those are the things that I've covered, and then we'll have our 2 people come around after you.
so I teach science and social studies in Spanish on Rena's team. And we have another teacher that teaches science and social studies in English on our team. We work very closely together. And one thing that we have been using, well, we've all been using on our team, we've all been using Edmodo to post our homework. And one thing that Betsy Lambert and I have been creating these Google presentation documents, slide presentations, that we post, that we show in class, discuss in class, embed videos, embed photos, and then we will later post them to Edmodo so the kids can review. But we've also used them to kind of flip our classroom. I posted, for example, tonight, the kids had to watch a video that I found on YouTube, and we're going to discuss it tomorrow, so we'll come in prepared for that. But I'll just go through and show you some of the things that we've done here, presentation I created before, and has a lot of visuals of a bunch of the different things that we've talked about in our classes, a lot of great photos, and then there's also some videos that I put here that the kids can go back and review. And then on top of that, we have a PDF file that I also have posts that the kids can access, and it's got questions that correspond to the presentations, and kids can go in and fill it out. And they're really good about helping each other out. Like Lauren was saying, they'll post things on Edmodo and say, oh, you know what, I forgot my book at school. Can someone please post pictures of the textbook pages we had to read or that correspond to the presentation? And they're really good about helping each other out. And so that was our main focus for this year. Betsy and I have been working hard on creating those presentations. And the good thing is we can save them, and every year we can use them over and over. It's a lot of work to create them, but then when they're saved in our Google Drive, we have them forever. And Dale actually came into our classroom today. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about how to get the workflow going better. So she helped my students set up folders in their Google Drive that they have shared with me. And so when it comes time to sharing work, I can just go into the folder and there's the work right there. So that was a really cool thing.
And I did it in
And
Spanish.
she did it in Spanish. She did the whole presentation in Spanish, and Walker and Catherine can attest to that. They were there today. So we can invite the students up to come and talk about what we've been doing. I'm stuck, but I'm done with it. Yeah. You know what, we're going to just kind of stroll around. We're going to go mobile. Here.
That can help us study and understand subject better. Like, it's a lot better than looking in the textbook, but then you can understand it better. And there's also pictures and videos that help you and it helps when you have like a quiz or something, it helps, you can take notes or you can look back on things that you may have forgotten, things that you may not realize, so it helps you understand something.
What about we work in small groups, so we have everything up on the board and we're moving around, so how does it help you be able to move around and be able to read and read?
In small groups, it helps us discuss, and you're always up to date on the homework or all the things that are going on in class, and it helps so much.
and getting to know each other. We've been seeing all kinds of, what were some of the videos that we've seen? Some of the pictures of pets, and I know you posted something about what you did over vacation. You posted about going out and riding, and just how excited she was about having accomplished something that she hadn't accomplished before. We've had lots of videos, and post a picture. So I got videos, I got pictures, I got a lot of information on what we did to celebrate the end of it. So we were pretty excited.
Just going to switch it up and switch over to Nipmuc, and then we'll head back to one more teacher at Misco and finish up with a Nipmuc teacher. So this is Emma Hensler, an ELA teacher at Nipmuc High School, who's going to talk about
the Google suite of apps that we've been using for our workflow. So we're in the PDC. Hi, so my name is Emma Hensler. I am an ELA teacher here at Nipmuc. I teach 9th and 10th grade. And I've really found that one of the ways that technology has really changed my classroom this year is through the Google suite of apps for education. Initially, my plan for the year was to go totally paperless. I have since figured out that that was a little bit ambitious. There was no way that was going to work, especially with the timeline that I had initially planned. But I've still really noticed that using electronic documents and that electronic workflow has really changed the format of my classroom. I think I didn't necessarily anticipate the iPad really changing things, was looking at formative assessment. And specifically when we're talking about Google Docs. I understood, like, before I would have students type an essay on Microsoft Word. Now I'm having them type it into Google Docs and submit it that way, but I didn't really see how Google Docs was going to change formative assessment. And that's really something that I've found has been very useful this year. So here, this is just an example of a formative assessment I did with my communication and literacy class. This is a heterogeneous 9th grade class that is set up to be a support structure for the traditional English curriculum. So we have students from like kind of all, and as a result, cooperative learning has been a really useful tool, especially when we're talking about incorporating Google Docs. So for this assignment, students were given one epic hero to read about, do some research on, and then groups were either assigned to summarize the story or to find elements of the heroic myth structure which we'd studied in class, and look for those elements within that story. So groups had one story that they were specializing in, and then they were typing their findings into the Google Doc. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you can tell, the first myth was kind of short, so I put both of them together. But we had, like, one group was in charge of just summarizing the story of Perseus. The next group was in charge of, really surprised me. What I thought was going to be just a really simple jigsaw exercise where students were practicing those skills and sharing their application of their literary analysis skills with one another. What I thought was going to be a basic substitution exercise, we're doing it in Google Docs, whereas we used to be doing it with paper and pencil. Really became much more than that. Students could see one another as they were working within the classroom, and they started monitoring themselves. So they actually managed their time a lot better because they could see who was, like, group 1 is almost done, and group 4, like, maybe only has a sentence or two written. Maybe that's an indicator that, like, group 4's got to step up their game. Got to get up there with group 1. So we kind of had some healthy competition, and a lot of made the assessment better and emphasized the skills that students had been developing throughout the unit. It was also nice too, because students could look at one another's work. The first group that shared was particularly strong, and so as we were kind of summarizing that group, I scrolled down and I noticed that other students were adding to their own answers because they wanted to be on par with that group who really did a good job in the very beginning. So it was nice. It was one of these times where I didn't really expect the new format or the new, I guess, medium for the assessment to change the assessment or to change the quality of work that I was receiving. But it really, the more obvious use for Google Docs, for me at least, was that idea of summative assessment, which is something I've used in class. So this is an example of a student essay. All of the color-coded parts, so where the text is actually changed, those are all comments that I came up with keystrokes for. So in just 2 or 3 clicks on my keyboard, I can put in entire sentences of feedback. As an English teacher, you start to notice there are certain comments that you're leaving over and over and over again. Things like, this is a fragment, or you need to italicize the title. And being able to just compress those into 1 or 2 keystrokes and it shows up and it's better. Because when I was giving those more personal comments, this is anywhere you see highlighted in yellow, that's somewhere where I highlighted the text of a student's writing and actually made a comment on the side. So those comments, because those kind of comments that I'm making on every single essay, because they're taking less time, I can take more time to make that qualitative feedback better and more specific to the student. So in this case, I can look at one specific issue within this essay. The conclusion is really short. So I can look at that one specific comment or issue and I can address this is okay, it's okay that your conclusion is short. I can express that, and I can make those comments better when I'm taking the time to make a more personalized comment. The other way, and this is, I apologize, when we're talking about workflow, it's much less flashy and exciting than talking about using something like an app or a specific project. The other way that I've found that Google has really changed my teaching is in my actual grading, especially when we're talking about those summative assessments and essays. When I receive an essay, there we go. Like this, students typically receive a rubric. That is pretty criteria on which you will be graded. Typically what I've done in the past is those rubrics are maybe some underlined boxes, maybe some circled boxes, maybe some written comments here and there. But for the most part, I fill out the rubric, I figure out what the overall grade is, staple it to the final product, and put it in the stack. And not that I never look at it again, but it kind of goes into the stack and that's where it stays. It takes, when we have that stack of paper, that's much more intimidating to look at as data to compress than what I've kind of figured out as a way to use Google to do the same thing. So, sorry, just switch apps here. And not even typically, it's become my practice now to put my rubric into a Google form. This is just your standard Google form that you might ask, I think, we got one for, if we were interested in going to a baseball game, right? It's just your standard form that you would use to collect information, usually from a large number of people. In this case, I'm using Google Forms to collect information about a large number of people, Those people being my 45 honors English students, or CPS students, or communication and literacy students. So I just put some basic information into the rubric. I asked for things like the student's first name, the student's last name, the block that they're in, the date. I put an image of it. Instead of just circling those boxes on the rubric, I'm checking in a bubble on a Google form. It emails me a copy at the end. I can forward that copy to students. And I do forward that copy to students. This way students see their grade individually, usually privately, at home. This is another way that technology has totally surprised me, in that it's changed what it means to pass back papers. So now I'm passing back papers. It's something that the student gets at home when they're not in front of me, when they are not surrounded by other students who are also getting grades on the same assignment. And it means that when a student approaches me with a concern about their feedback or about a lot of times students who I just hand back an essay, they see the score, and the next thing I know, they're at my desk and asking, why did I get a B minus? You know why you got a B minus. There's feedback explaining why you got a B minus. Open up the document. And when students have that time on their own, I find that they do open the document a little more. I'm not there to just explain, walk them through all of the feedback that I've already given them, and as a result, they're a lot more independent. So they're pursuing that information, and they're kind of better at realizing that they have that information. Those tools are at their disposal. It's in the form of that feedback that I left on their Google Doc. Once I'm done inputting all of those Google Forms, there's a lot of numbers coming at you right now. If it loads. Yes. Right. So I get a spreadsheet of a lot of numbers. I feel like there is a perception that English teachers are all about qualitative data and we're not interested in numbers or looking at things objectively. That is not true. We really do appreciate data. And this is a place where taking this information in a Google form instead of just circling boxes on a handout really has changed the way I teach. It's changed the way I develop rubrics, and it's changed the way that I go to teach writing. When we're looking at this, it's down according to a couple of things. I can break it down, I can organize it by class. So I can see how did my A block do compared to how did my C block do compared to how did my G block do on the same assignment. I can also look at the same criteria from different assignments over the course of the year and see how have students progressed. So are they getting stronger? Are they getting better? Or is there something that I need to go back and spend some more time focusing on? Instead of going through and making you look at that vague piece of data? Nope. I kind of compressed that data for you very briefly. So this is looking at 2 essays that students wrote. So in English class, we generally really hammering home. So I took here an essay from October. This is the first essay that I used the Google format or the Google form format in order to grade. And an essay from January. So an essay that the students wrote 3 months later, after some more time in class to practice, after some more time for formative assessment. And I can look here, first of all, at, if I'm looking at only my thesis statements for that October essay, I can say, okay, so out of, on a 10-point scale, my A block averaged an 8.19, my C block averaged an 8.09, and my G block averaged a 7.64. So right away, I can look at it and it's like a 0.5 percentage point lower than all of those other, than A and C blocks in average. So I can look back at that and I can say, what was going on the day I taught thesis statements in G block? Is it one or two outliers that are bringing down the average? Or is this a pattern that I need to look at in the data, go back and actually spend some time reteaching thesis statements? Or did I just have a headache when I was grading their papers and was I crankier? I can also look at how that data compares to the January data. So I can say like, okay, so A block in October scored an average of 8.19 on their thesis statement. In January, that's something that I would like to see increased a little bit. I can also look at my C block, for example, and they actually dropped. So I can look there and I can say, what happened? Did I not break down the prompt enough for them? Did they not have enough time to workshop thesis statements in class? Was I out of class for a day? What happened there? And I can go back and do some reteaching. This has changed not only the way that I look at data and the way I think about grading, but it's also given me something concrete. I can say that I feel like my students are getting better, but this gives me concrete evidence to say they actually are getting better. It's also changed the way I develop rubrics. Before, it was like, we always develop rubrics to measuring the same criteria using the same scale for multiple assignments. It's kind of taking that benchmark analysis and giving it some sort of hard data to support it. This has been something that I've used for essays. It's something that I've been using for the 21st century skill rubrics that we've instituted here at Mendon-Upton. And it's also been something that I've instituted just for a participation rubric to say, like, how is this student doing? Is the student, I asked them to speak up more first quarter. In second quarter, are they taking that advice and are they speaking up? So I can see that student growth and I can kind of get a better idea of, are my students learning when I need them to? And if not, how can I go back and change my teaching? Or something that's really surprised me. This is not something, I didn't think that putting an iPad into students' hands was going to be a way for me to become a more reflective teacher necessarily, but it really has because it's changed the way that I assess them on these skills and it's changed the way I approach teaching those skills. So that is all I have.
I just want to say that this was really very exciting stuff. And
it sounds really boring.
It's really, we've been collaborating on this, and in fact, at the March PD Day, we did presentations about this very topic in the paper with the girls.
Yeah.
So if you're grading a lot of papers, this is great stuff. And it really is, there's never been a better time in the world of that discussion with students about their work with these tools. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we have let's use my laptop. We're going to use my laptop because it's a little bit speedier and there's some nice things happening here. Dan Rogers is, he can tell you what he's doing, but he's a teacher that I've been working with on a project that he's doing with his fifth grade classes, and I referenced it a little bit in the beginning. I'll tell you more about it. I'll connect to you.
So I teach fifth grade ELA primarily and a little bit of science. And for a number of years, I have required my students to read 30 books each year. It's just good readers and good writers is by making them read. And so I got thinking about this over the summer, and it's like, okay, I've got to do something different, like something in addition to why should the kids care about the books that they're reading? What am I going to do different? And so I set up this blog on Google Blogger where I require my students now, every term they're required to write a book review. And I teach them at the beginning of the year the difference between a book review and a book report. I don't want book reports. The idea here is, excuse me, the idea here is for them to write something that when another student looks at it, you're encouraging or trying to give up this book and read it. And so, so I thought that this was real appealing the way this is. These are all the book reviews that have been done so far this year. We started at the beginning of the year. They did one on their summer reading fiction selection. They've done one for term 1, term 2, term 3. And I just reminded them today about term 4. And so as you click on any one of these, what happens is Mrs. Casal, if you would just click.
Pick one?
Yeah, just pick
Give me
one.
one? You got one that you want?
No, not one in particular, just good, that's good. Okay, so as they click on it, you can see it brings up, I make sure we have a copy of the book cover, and they give a short, and hopefully will give someone else the incentive to want to read the book. The part that I'm working on with my students now is the work that they need to do to make it so that they're not going to be embarrassed by putting up what's up here. I remind them, when you put your book review up there, remember, people are looking at not only what do you have to say, but how have you said it. Your grammar, your capitalization, punctuation, all of that mechanical stuff that is going to make someone either want to read it or go, couldn't even care less because I don't want to read something like that. And so that's the part that's the biggest challenge with my students this year. Reviews in such a way that they can be proud of what they have put up here. Previously, it has always been me putting the book reviews up. They did them, then I would take them and put them up. I have ideas about how I want to expand this. I want to get the kids actually putting the reviews up themselves, putting the book covers up themselves. And I have some other ideas in mind that I've had as I've been sitting here this evening. I want to talk to Mrs. Casal, Mr. Amatrano, Mrs. Meyer about how to go ahead and expand this. But I never required anything in particular for the students to read. There's some people here who may be familiar with, in the past, I've required them so many in each particular genre. And I stepped away from that. Why do I have a lot of kids not reading the 30 books that I require every year? And because some of them, I do not want to read science fiction. I do not want to read, fantasy or whatever. And so they would just not do it. And they would rather take a lower grade than have to read those that they are really not interested in. So my philosophy this year is, I just want you reading. So if you want to read 30 realistic fiction selections, by all means, please do so. I'm more concerned with them reading, and I feel gratified in what I've done because there is a student who is a freshman here at Nipmuc now, whose mother spoke to me last year, and she said, when my daughter was in your class, she was not a reader. Now I think that what I am doing with the students is worth it. It's worth the time and the effort. If what I can do with these kids is have them become the person who always has something, a book with them somewhere, so they always have time to read. The other thing is that a lot of times the kids think, when I say, I expect you to be reading every night, well, they think that, that means I've got to sit down and read for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And I try to help them to understand that is not necessarily so. You know what? Mom's taking you to the doctor's office. Read for that 5 minutes in the car. Read for that 10 minutes while you're waiting to see the doctor. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there adds up, and it makes a huge difference. And so that is why I have become teaching the kids, the importance of reading. And so I'm hoping by doing this and having them have this, they all have access to this, they know how to get to it, and they are able to go in and see what others have said. about a book. Now, the way they do that is we have this book review form, and it's a Google form. They go in, and I make it real easy for them. Just fill in the blanks, their name, the title, the author, and 5 to 8 sentences about what they have to say about the book. And finish it off with, how much did you like the book? Oh, it's only 1 star, I didn't really like it. 5 stars, that was an awesome book. Now, one of the things that I want the kids to understand is that all I expect them to do is to support their thoughts about the book with evidence. So, if you don't like the book, that's okay. Say, I really didn't like this book because. And that's the important part that I try to emphasize with them, is they have to tell the because. I said, your grade is not based upon whether I agree with your review or not, whether you like the book or not. That's not what the important thing is. It's how well can you express your thoughts and say what you have to say about the book that you have read. So that's really what I'm trying to do and to get across with the kids on this. And maybe they're not thrilled with it. I think some of them are not real thrilled with, I have to write a book review. But you know what? I mean, that's just one of the expectations that they know. And at the beginning of the year in my class, I expect them to read 30 books. I expect them to write a book review. And they only have to write 5, 1 on the summer fiction selection and 1 for each term. If they want to write more than that, they are welcome to do so, but they don't have to. That's completely up to them. The nice thing with this here also is that as I post these book reviews, I label all of them. The author's name, the genre. So if for example, I wanted to look, Gail, in fact, if you would, just do me a favor, go up to the search box and just type in, like realistic fiction.
We'll look at it here, or?
Yeah, either one. You can do it either way. We got a realistic fiction selection. This has brought up all the ones that are realistic fiction. I don't have to go through and try and figure out which ones are which. Okay? So I'm trying to make it as convenient as possible for them to go in and find the books that they are interested in finding out about. I've got the boys, as you can imagine, they are all over the Jeff Kinney books, the Whippy Kid books. So they want to see what are their peers had to say about this new Jeff Kinney book, So they'll read what 3 or 4 have written about it. Okay, well, no, maybe I don't want to read that one, or maybe I do. So that is the idea that I'm trying to do with this book review blog, is to generate more interest in the books, to try and get them more interested and more engaged in reading on a regular basis.
Stand up. The last but not least is Heather Waterman from my high school, who's going to show us her awesomeness to end our...
No pressure, no pressure. Hi, I'm Heather Waterman. I teach Earth Science, 9th grade, and Physics, 11th and 12th grade at the CPS, AP Physics 1, which is an algebra-based level, and AP Physics C, which is a calculus-based level. Okay, Dan, or Dale, can you just connect, please?
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. And this year, we've been using the iPads not as a way of doing physics, but as a way of capturing what happens. Physics is all about matter and motion, and sometimes that matter and motion happens really quickly, and it's hard to see. So, one of the things I have my kids do is they use it can be their phone, it can be their iPad, but what they do is they video. And even at a video level, things happen very quickly. So, one of my students at the beginning of the year said, Ms. Waterman, have you seen this new app? It's called UberSense. It's free. It's sports. What it does is it slows down the video to 1/8 speed. And what that allows you to do, so this is just a bunch of the stuff the kids did this year. So that's all from my kids, just video clips that they had uploaded to me over the course of stuff. And how we use this is, and this is also Prezi, which, now I'm trying to pull out the app. What is my laptop? No, I'll take this one, that's fine. While I use Google Classroom for my students, I also have a website that I maintain, just basically a snapshot every day of stuff we do in the classroom, and just integrated with things we do in class. So this is just a way for the community to see what happens on a daily basis in a classroom. So, using iPads, I'll skip ahead to the end, because that's the entry video analysis. This was egg cars that the kids developed in science. They basically had to create something that could withstand a collision. And so they had tinfoil eggs that had to survive. Now, they filmed the Mythbuster style using okay, y'all caught that, right? You saw how much happened? Okay, so the problem with doing something like that is that even at real time, it's hard to see the interactions. So one of my students built me this Mythbuster type time strip, and so then when we take a look here, is that they can then snapshot it. So using the app, they know this is a certain distance, so I know, okay, here's where it is here, here's my timestamp, and then I can see, go a little bit further ahead in time, and I can see how long did it take to go this distance. And so they're able to take things that happen very, very quickly and then actually be able to analyze it. One of my students said this year that they really liked about it was the fact that they could look and experiment the same experiment more than once. Repeatability in science is one of the things that is crucial. And it's hard when you're you're a new scientist to try to get your experiment to work the same time again and again. What this does is it allows us to capture that time, and then they can actually get their method using the iPads or their phone, and we've got a lot of use out of it this year. So that's just a glimpse of how we use iPads in the physics classroom.
We don't have anybody from the physics department here, but physics teachers at MISCO are using that app to analyze students' movements in sports and other physical activities. The students are able to take video of themselves and then analyze their movements and improve their performance using that app. So another piece, thinking.
Well, thank you very much to everybody for coming out this evening. I think the vignette work, and I think we're only really just seeing the tip of the proverbial iceberg with regard to the possibilities of how we really can change teaching and learning with these various apps. So again, thank you very, very much for coming out and showing really how these tools really are a game changer.
Thank you, students, for coming and sitting with us.
Well, and it's kind of apropos. I only have two short items. You can kind of easily see why it is so based upon her presentation, which was just a couple minutes ago. But I just wanted to point out that I believe for our second straight year, NIPMA has a teacher that's a recipient of the Mass Insight Partner in Excellence Award winner. And this year, we're very proud that Heather Waterman is one of the 33 teachers statewide that's being recognized by Mass Insight. Mass Insight is the not-for-profit organization that brings us the Massachusetts Math and Science Initiative. And Heather is being in physics class. Really, when it comes to really two things, access, but also achievement. You know, as I say in my background notes, in the span of just 3 to 4 years, the amount of kids has tripled from 16 to 48 this year accessing AP Physics. In that same time span, over 70% of her kids have achieved 3 or higher or qualifying scores. To put this in real simple terms, if you think about it, bless you, AP Physics is like one of the toughest AP courses that you could take. So I think her absolutely outstanding. I think from the very short snapshot of what she just showed, she's everything that's right about teaching and learning. I can't express how proud I am to have incredible teachers like her in this district. I popped into her classroom during the iFair and I said, Heather, I have to admit, and please don't take this the wrong way, I cyber-stalked you with regard to your waterman180.com website. Her classroom website is absolutely amazing. I would invite anybody and everybody to visit that site It's fun, it's interesting, it's snapshots of what her kids are doing. Recognition on a statewide level is very much deserved, and I'd like to express my gratitude and praise for a job well done. So congratulations. I don't know if you have anything. I know I was probably a little long with you.
You said a lot there. As a former English teacher like Emma, I was one of those who loved data. So I love that you started talking about the data for access and equity and achievement. But I also love a good story. And I think the story of Heather's classroom is one of active learning and hands-on learning opportunities. Anytime you stop by her classroom, you are guaranteed to see kids engaged, problem solving, hands-on, higher order thinking. It's the epitome of active learning. Pendulum, a weight off of the fire truck acting as a pendulum. The kids are always engaged. In addition to being a phenomenal teacher, she's also just a truly generous professional. I think Heather's professional development sessions are always highly attended by her peers because they know they're going to get high quality stuff that they can put into action the next day in their classes. She is also a cohort leader for Minty, recognizing the fact that she's guiding not only Nipmuc, but guiding other schools in the area, designing programming and supporting their AP needs. She's a phenomenal teacher. We're so fortunate to have her, and I echo everything that Joe said. So congratulations, Heather.
So the second thing that I have in my report will go from, just as an update, about now almost 2 weeks ago, the House Ways and Means Committee released the FY16 budget. It does represent modest progress for a district. Generally speaking, some of the cuts that were in the governor's budget, particularly one of the key ones to the kindergarten expansion program, have been restored by the House, which is certainly good news. Probably the most significant piece is the governor's budget had our reimbursement rate for regional transportation at 60%. The House budget increases it to 70%. So that gain of 10%, $1,422 from what the committee certified the budget on back on March 16th. They also increased the minimum increase per student from $20 to $25. We're picking up that extra $5 per student. So that represents an increase of $11,475. So those are obviously some modest good news. I think still the big picture, as we've talked about time and again, for FY16 to work, it's really going to be a local solution. But as I say in my background notes, we're still relatively early in the process. We're expecting around May 15th. The Senate final budget doesn't come out of conference committee until probably at least the last week of June. So it's still early in the process, but it's good to see some forward progress. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, that's all I've got.
Next, we'll hear the subcommittee updates, the superintendent evaluation subcommittee.
Okay, so we just met the other day, and just to make everybody aware, Joe is in a constant process of self-evaluation, and we're evaluating him. And it starts in October, and it runs through the following October. So we're at the mid-cycle, and we met just this past week to talk about some of his key goals and some of the key actions and benchmarks. And Joe makes actions and benchmarks. And it's kind of just a work in progress as when he's achieving these things and what he anticipates some of the future goals and when he anticipates meeting those goals. So we're at the mid-cycle review. Everything is kind of running on schedule. And we had a great meeting the other day, and we'll continue to apprise you of progress.
next we move on to old business. Is there any old business we need to dispose of? Okay. Hearing none, we move on to new business. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the music department field trip to Washington DC, May 2016.
Okay, you should have in your full requests from Anne Marie Tremblay and Simon Harding, who are looking to take the Nipmuc band and chorus to the Heritage World Strides Music Festival, which is an adjudicated competition from April 4th to the 18th of next year. Right? So, Anne Marie, is there any specific information that you want to share?
I have a little packet. It gives you a little bit of a cost estimate of the trip, and some details of the itinerary. Here in Nipmuc to go on a festival trip every other year, so we would like to go next spring. So we're starting the planning process of this, and polling the kids, the real interest after going to Montreal last spring, and then previously going to New York City for a festival trip. The nation's capital seems to be one that they really like to visit. And at that festival, the itinerary here is it has to be very flexible, but right now we're hoping that we have at least 100 students coming with us, like we did for Montreal. We always have at least 10 chaperones. One chaperone for every 10 students for April vacation, and then use that first weekend of the April vacation, and then returning on Tuesday. So we have the number of nights would be 4 nights, using Friday as our travel day, and then going and participating in the Heritage Festival on that Saturday. And when we went to Montreal, we had 6 different performing groups participating, so we would like to do the same, and so that's included in our quote. The students were disappointed when we went to Montreal. The Ronde was not open, which is a big amusement park up in Montreal. So they did express that they would like to have an amusement park experience. So Six Flags is thankfully open on weekends, so we worked that. Using Monday as a day to tour the area in Washington, D.C. So that would be a returning trip on Tuesday. So if you look on the second page, the cost, if we do indeed get close to 100 students to go, would be per paying participant $490, which seems low, but right now the transportation isn't included. They do offer to provide you the transportation, or we can seek our own vendors for that, which we did last year from Montreal. So we'll try to get some quotes for those things moving forward. And then the other things that are not included, performance when we go, and we are very close to Annapolis, and we can go to the naval base and work that into our trip. They can either see the renowned Glee Club down there, or the band, the naval band. So that would be an option for a live performance. If you look on the back of that page, there are other things that we can work into as well. The festival dinner, which is where they have the awards banquet, is actually held at the Medieval Times Dinner Theater. So we would probably include that as well. And then we can just, work the itinerary out as we get closer. But we would like to keep the trip around $700, which is what the Montreal trip was for that. It's free. So I don't think it's going to add that much more to the cost of the trip. So
We're happy with Heritage. They've been around for about 35 years. That was the festival company that we went with last year. And I know I did Heritage tours when I was in high school as well. So it's just a really, the choirs and the bands are adjudicated just like they would at the recent micro festivals that we went to. They're just really top-notch, high-quality festival. And we're just really comfortable returning to this. So that's about it in a nutshell. Do you have any questions?
So Emery, is this subsidized by the students, like the students' families?
Yes. And we, not to plug in or anything, but we had a meeting with the parents. So we're helping the students think about the planning of the trip and setting up some student accounts where when they participate in certain fundraisers that we will run next year as well, they can chop off some more of the balance to the trip. Sounds great. Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the Nip-Mutt Music Field Trip in April 2016?
We make a motion to approve the Mid-Month Music Department field trip to Washington, D.C. in April 2016.
Sorry. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Great. Thank you very much. All right. Now, next portion of the agenda is the part that I was not looking forward to this evening, in contrast to everything else. It's really difficult. Oh, I just don't know how to say goodbye to the rock star of the school committee over here. As many of us here recognize, Chris and I started at the same time 3 years ago, and he is not returning. He's not running for re-election. So tonight will be Chris Russo's last meeting on the school committee. When we came on, and at that time I thought I had a pretty good command of the English language, but Chris then proceeded to teach me a few colorful and interesting phrases that I had not yet heard before. That will be missed. Well, in all seriousness, though, we do appreciate all of Chris's dedication and hard work to the school committee, to this community, and to the district. Chris has become a friend to us as well as a colleague on this committee, and his willingness to push boundaries, to be himself, to stand alone if he feels that he is right, and following his conscience above all, but yet working collaboratively with the rest of us for the betterment of the district is quite admirable. We appreciate the hard work and all of the long hours he contributed to chairs, and his work on negotiations, and also his dedication to the multi-board and its process as well. Clearly, the progress we have made over the last few years wouldn't have been possible without his full and active participation. Chris's views and willingness to look at issues from a fresh perspective and not really accept the status quo or this is how things are done, it has been really helpful. It has helped the district reshape the ways in which we budget and operate the schools, and for that we are thankful. We'll miss his wit, his perspective, and I don't know who will bring that spark to our meetings in the future. We do wish you all success in the future. And thank your wife and your family for sharing you with us for so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I'd like to thank the teachers first and foremost. You guys drive the school. You're doing more with less every day. It is truly appreciated by everybody in the district. And this committee, thank you very much, and continue the hard work. You're making a difference, and Joe, fantastic job. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
I just want to echo what Lee just said. I think, when I think about you and what last 3 years, really one word comes to mind, and it's heart. That you're a guy who very much wears his heart on his sleeve. He always knows what's on your mind. Everybody always knows what you're thinking and what you're feeling about a situation. And I've grown to really value and respect you a great deal over the last 3 years, Chris. So thank you for everything that you've done for this district. Thank you for everything that you've done for me.
Thank you.
And as a matter of fact, I think what we'll do is after they're constructed, we'll name in front of Misco Hill, it'll be the Chris Russo Memorial Park. I just had to, sorry.
I would like to say that the new member to this committee, stepping in midstream and a little uncertainty, I appreciate the support you've given me, been for me as joining this committee, so. And I can echo that as well, because I know during my first few months, I felt like I was drinking from a water hose, and everything was coming fast and furious, learning acronyms, and it gave me great peace of mind when you would stop and take me aside and say, okay, that's what this means. Don't feel like you should know this. This is something that you'll learn as you go. And coming from somebody who was, kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed, that helped me tremendously to kind of find my way. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your hard work. Like we're getting to know you and work with you guys.
Thank you for keeping rolling along, too. Sometimes it's about the school. Most of the time it's not, but sometimes it is.
All right. Okay, so next we move on to correspondence. Is there any?
Yeah, actually there is. It should have been included in your packet. This was something that we put together just on Friday. But I think we should publicly acknowledge the Bose Corporation out of Framingham. Within the last few headphones to the school district. So brand new headphones that are going off, really high quality too, I might add.
With built-in microphones.
Yeah, to all 4 schools. Susan Turner, more importantly, is a Mendon-Upton mom. Works for the Bose Corporation and really facilitated this really generous donation. So you have in your packet a thank you letter from myself on behalf of the district. So really nice donation. So we'd like to publicly acknowledge that and publicly thank the corporation.
All right. Any other correspondence? Are there any other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting? Anything different from usual? All right, hearing none. Future agenda items include the school committee reorganization on May 18th, the curriculum team audit report on May 18th, and school choice projections on June 8th. All right, are there other matters that are in discussion right now? There's a great 5K coming up this weekend here in Hempel.
Saturday, 10 a.m. The Run for Their Future. Really very well run race, terrific race, and most importantly, all the benefits go to scholarships for our seniors. So strongly encourage it. I know I'm coming back for now my 5th straight year. You're looking at 2nd place ribbon for the 40-somethings, So
Nice flat course.
nice flat course.
Very
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's a good point.
Right. Nothing left to do. Let's adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, the meeting is adjourned at 8:48.
Three kids.
True, I don't think Rich was too happy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
What do you do?